is about mixing the wonderful worlds of React and Meteor.js. Um, Meteor.js is a framework for handling data that is it's really nice just for bootstrapping things and prototyping. It has built-in authentication that'll come with templates that are in this thing called Blaze format, which is a little bit annoying to integrate with React, but not as hard as one might think. And the main benefit of it is not writing APIs, which, let's be honest, is really the hard part of React because you have to manage state that way. Um, the Meteor kind of follows the Flux pattern in that when you take off the insecure mode, you wind up turning all of the model transformations that you've built into actions so that you call them directly, which makes it pretty easy to just replace on clicks with, hey, call this action. And you're even importing in the same sort of file structure, which is kind of nice. Meteor also handles your data store for you in that when you're using Meteor, it holds a local copy of your data store that is a subset of your general data that your server is going to have, which is nice because it means that you don't have to constantly be loading data back and forth. And if a data change happens locally, it will attempt to push it up until it gets contact with the server again. So it handles a lot of edge cases that otherwise you'd have to deal with on your own. So how do you get it to handle pushing data into a component um, without breaking everything? Um, you create a Meteor project and add React Meteor to it. Not that hard, but it's a little bootstrappy and boring, and we don't have enough time to really go over all the little quirks about it. But this is a nice link to the guide that I followed. Here's an example of I created a sample app that I can't get running on this new machine because I haven't set up Meteor and Node and stuff properly. But you create a component, you set default props, and then down here is where all the magic happens for Meteor. Um, this create container allows you to export a component um, that is linked into Meteor's data structures. So it'll subscribe to the markers, um, which we call it. It'll subscribe to markers, which is defined in another file. It's basically just saying, hey, I'm going to have a Mongo object called markers, and whenever that updates, update this. And then inside of here, inside of this first part, you return what you want the props passed into your component to be. And then here you pass in the component. So now what you've exported is actually a component that's been linked to your data. And when the data on Meteor side updates, it'll push the new props into this component, which makes making a higher order component pretty simple. It does change having state on your higher order component to taking in props from Meteor. So because it's handling the rendering and everything, Meteor is going to handle all of your data. So this is just a little bit more in depth pointing out of what everything is. And this is how you actually change data. So when you click on my map, it's going to call this function, and then it's going to say Meteor call marker set. So when you define what your model is, you're going to also define the methods that affect that model. So here I have marker set, takes lat long. You're able to, Meteor has nice checks so that you can say, okay, I'm expecting this to be a number. It's going to be a number. This is getting the user ID because the authentication system's baked into Meteor. You don't really have to worry about rolling your own out or dealing with something weird like devise. You just kind of say, hey, I'm logged in, right? and then when you're logged in, you're logged in. This defines what I'm giving back to the user, or what I'm going to set for the user. So I'm going to say, if a marker exists for this user, update it. Otherwise, create a new marker for this user. Pretty simple. If you've done Reduxy stuff, then you're used to this kind of uh, slight indirection in on clicks. So kind of nice. Uh, Meteor is, of course, I'm a big fan of it, but it does have its pros and cons. One of the best things I think about it is that um, it's able to compile into Cordova apps for Android, iOS, Windows phones if you're into that sort of thing. And who knows, maybe somebody even put one out there for like a Zune. But I think that it has a really nice and active ecosystem for people updating things, and giving you access to newer features of the phones. But the problem with that is they are kind of stored behind Cordova, so you're not actually getting direct access to native features. So if there's something you want, you might actually have to write a plugin. Um, Also, Meteor hosts its servers. When you run a Meteor server, it's hosted on, or when you deploy one, it's hosted on their servers. You can roll your own servers, but then you've got to maintain Meteor's code for your servers. So that's an issue that one would have to consider. And then if you were to move away from using Meteor, you're going to have to really restructure the apps, because you're going to have to build an API. You're going to have to build the communicators for React. And if you've built native apps, you're going to have to build those from scratch, or I guess wrap in Cordova yourself, which, anytime you move off of a platform, it's kind of a big deal. So these aren't unknown things that you'd have to do, but, you know, there are things to take in consideration if you want to roll a production thing with Meteor and not just a prototype. And happy building.